I'm Joe Lample. When I created Growing a Greener World, I had one goal: to tell stories of everyday people, innovators, entrepreneurs, forward-thinking leaders who are all, in ways both big and small, dedicated to organic gardening and farming, lightening our footprint, conserving vital resources, protecting natural habitats, making a tangible difference for us all. They're real, they're passionate, they're all around us. They're the game changers who are literally growing a greener world and inspiring the rest of us to do the same. Growing a Greener World, it's more than a movement, it's our mission. Living in a food insecure home means that families don't always know where their next meal is coming from, let alone what it's going to be. And when families have to rely on donation centers for their groceries, chances are they're not getting a lot of this, fresh produce. That's because it just doesn't last very long, and most distribution sites just aren't set up to handle it. Today we visit West Milford, New Jersey, where one innovative group of gardeners grows food to feed their hungry locals, and their efforts are having a far-reaching impact. In fact, one very committed member of this community has pioneered a unique bridge connecting the millions of Americans who grow more food than they can eat with donation distribution centers close to home. In the midst of this beautiful lake and mountain landscape is the home garden of Gary Oppenheimer. Here, Gary grows food to fill his plate and to share with his neighbors. Plus, it's from growing and sharing food and still having too much to consume that Gary was inspired to create the national nonprofit organization, AmpleHarvest.org, which connects locally grown food with locally hungry people.
My gardening started in first grade when I told a bunch of kids in my class that I could grow grass on a sponge, and I have no idea where I came up with that idea, and they all made fun of me. So during Christmas break, I left a pie pan in the class with water and a sponge and some grass seed I took from the garage. And after Christmas break, we came back and grass was growing. And everybody was amazed, and for one day they stopped making fun of me. That was my start in gardening. I didn't keep on gardening after that necessarily, but I was hooked. And so later on in life, I lived on a boat in New York City. And this is back in the late 70s. I had some ammunition boxes I had bought, and I planted tomatoes and eggplants, and I have a very clear memory of one day harvesting them. And we had a wonderful meal using what I grew. I love the idea of growing. And I like the idea of starting something from a seed and ending up with a jewel, if you will, after that. So I became a master gardener. I walked in the house with a lot more of what I was growing, and my wife said, enough, no more, get it out. And I was giving food away to friends, and I discovered there's only so many cucumbers you can give to friends and still have them call you a friend. And I knew there was a battered women's shelter here in the town, and I contacted the woman who ran it. I knew her, Sandra Ramos. And I called up, Sandra, I got food, does your shelter need it? She said, sure, bring it over. So I showed up with 2 bags. And this lovely lady answers the door, and I said, I have fresh produce for you. And she said, thank you. And as she was closing the door, she said, thank you, now we have some fresh food. And I was walking away, and I remembered that's a really weird thing, thinking, but you just have canned produce. It just stuck with me. I wasn't thinking in terms of food pantries or food banks or hunger in America. It was just one of those tipping points that trigger something with you. And then I got asked by a local group here in West Milford, Sustainable West Milford, which runs a whole lot of sustainability of programs in this town, if I would take over the directorship of the community garden. In meetings with the people in late 2008, we were discussing how the garden operates, what my vision was for how a garden should operate. And one of the things that was brought to me repeatedly was, as the summer wears on, there was a lot of food left in the garden. People were getting overwhelmed, going on vacation, they were bored. And I said, if we're going to have an ample harvest, the least we can do is give it to people who need it. And it just rolled right off my tongue. And so we put a committee together to say, let's figure out how we can do this. And they started organizing how they were going to actually gather up this excess food. And I, as the director of the garden, decided I was going to find the food pantries in the town. I had this vision that if I couldn't find a pantry, then millions of other gardeners couldn't find a pantry either. It was just one of these things that just comes to you.
Think of AmpleHarvest.org as a search engine for food pantries. It's basically an online resource that enables 40 million home gardeners who grow food to be able to find a local food pantry in their own community who are willing and able to take the excess produce from them. So here's how it works. Food pantries register online at ampleharvest.org. They put in all the important information: the name of the pantry, their address, where they're located, and the days and times they accept food deliveries. From the gardener's side, assume you've had a surplus harvest and you want to donate some of the excess. You'll go to ampleharvest.org where it says Find a Pantry and enter your zip code. You'll then see a listing of all the registered food pantries in your area, sorted based on distance away from your location. You then simply pick the one that's most convenient. From there, you deal directly with the food pantry based on the unique information they've provided. So if the food pantry says call before you call them directly. If the food pantry says come Saturday mornings between a certain time frame, you'll know it. Ampleharvest.org isn't a part of the actual transaction any more than when you use Google to find a shoe store. You go directly to the store to buy the shoes, and the shoe store doesn't know that you came because of a search engine. Simply put, ampleharvest.org is there to enable the transaction to happen. The more important part is once you know that you can donate food to the pantry at a neighborhood church, for example, you'll go tell your neighbors and other gardening friends. And as good news often spreads, your community is learning of this valuable resource by word of mouth, and who now have a conduit for donating fresh produce to places where it can be quickly given to those in need. So Gary, this was the birthplace of ampleharvest.org.
Yeah, this is the community garden where the ampleharvest.org program spawned from. It came from actually a meeting that took place in this grist mill up here in 2008 when I took over the community garden as director.
The garden is known as the West Milford Organic Community Garden. It sits on property that was once a former apple orchard. The owner, Ann Thornton, is not only an avid gardener herself, but also a strong advocate for sustainable communities. When approached about the possibility of using part of the property known as Apple Acres for a community garden, Ann and her family were not only more than willing to provide the land, but she also offered use of the historic building for tool and equipment storage and where that all-important meeting took place. And still today, where groups from all over the community come to learn more about sustainable gardening and more. According to Gary, ampleharvest.org is in essence a massive viral education campaign to get pantries to gear up to receive produce because they didn't know they could, and for gardeners to donate their harvest to pantries because they didn't know they could, they didn't know they should, and they didn't know where to do it. So with the gardeners, it was a question of educating, encouraging, and enabling them to do it. And with the pantries, it was an issue of someone saying, you can receive this type of food.
If I'm bringing milk or cheese or fish to a place, you need to refrigerate it. There's no argument about that. But if I pick a tomato or an apple or dig up a potato, it can sit out on a table for a day or so, and some things shouldn't be refrigerated at all. What I built into ampleharvest.org, which solves a whole bunch of problems, was the idea of the pantry telling the gardeners when to come. If the pantry was going to, for argument's sake, have the clients coming on a Sunday from noon to 3, they could tell the gardeners to come Sunday 9 to noon. Now the gardeners know when to do the harvesting. They'll harvest either Sunday morning or maybe Friday evening. So the food's freshly harvested, they get it to the pantry. The clients are coming a few hours later, they're picking it up. So the food is in and out on a few hour or same day basis. There's no need for refrigeration whatsoever.
Today, thanks to the dedication of so many people and organizations around the country, getting fresh produce and food to those in need is becoming more accessible than ever. DC Central Kitchen in Washington turns leftover food into millions of meals for thousands of at-risk individuals while offering nationally recognized culinary job training to once homeless and hungry adults. Through their food recycling program, they put waste to work. Mary Seaton Corboy is a superstar in the urban farming world. Co-founder at Greensgrove Farms in downtown Philadelphia, what was once an abandoned industrial brownfield now lies a pioneering urban farm, providing locally grown food for a community that often has little. Her impact now reaches far beyond this 1-acre lot. From the nursery to the farm market, the CSA program, and even the community kitchen, Mary and her small but dedicated staff are now touching the lives of so many. And another horticultural hero is Will Allen. In 1993, Growing Power was an organization with teens that needed a place to work. Will Allen was a farmer with land. He designed a program that offered teens an opportunity to work so they could grow food for their community, along with the farming methods and educational programs that are now the hallmark of this nonprofit organization. What started as a simple partnership to change the landscape of Milwaukee has blossomed into a national nonprofit with a global commitment to sustainable food systems. Today, Growing Power empowers people around the world to produce vast amounts of food year-round, where little opportunity existed before.
The key beneficiaries ultimately of the AmpleHarvest.org campaign are the children in this country. We're having a problem across America with childhood obesity, diabetes on the rise. This is in large part caused by the children not getting access to the good foods they should really be getting. What Michelle Obama's Let's Move initiative is striving to do is to get people, particularly children I should say, eating healthier and exercising more. I'm a big fan of exactly what she's advocating. But what she's calling on people to do is what AmpleHarvest.org enables them to get. Eating healthier and better food is not necessarily affordable to millions of people, but if we get fresh, locally grown food into the food pantry system for free, which is what AmpleHarvest.org does, that solves the problem, and millions of people who wouldn't have had access to fresh food suddenly now have fresh food for themselves and their families. I gotta tell you, every day that I do AmpleHarvest.org, I'm learning there's more to it than I thought there was, which tells me there's more down the road than I know there's there now. And I don't know where it's going, but it's a wonderful path for myself and I think for the country.
For years, I've been a member of the Garden Writers Association, who pioneered a long-standing program to encourage gardeners to set aside a portion of their vegetable growing space to feed the hungry. Today, Plant a Row, as it's known, provides focus, direction, and support to any person or group looking to alleviate hunger through gardening. Plant a Row began in Anchorage, Alaska, in the garden column of Jeff Lowenfels, former Garden Writers Association president. He asked his readers to plant a row of vegetables for Beans Cafe, an Anchorage soup kitchen. The program was so successful, he introduced it to the Garden Writers Association as a national program. It took 5 years to reach the first 1 million pounds of donated produce. The next million was reached in only 2 years, and in the next 10 years, more than 1 million pounds of food has been donated each year. That's a significant contribution, considering that each pound of produce supplements 4 meals. Since 1995, over 16 million tons of produce, providing over 60 million meals, have been donated by American gardeners, just like this one here, through the Fayette County Master Gardener Program in Georgia. This garden alone, this season, produced over 28,000 pounds of produce, all given away. No government red tape, no bureaucracy, just people helping people. And if you'd like to learn how your garden can help people too, we have that information on our website, and the address is the same as our name. It's growingagreenerworld.com. Have you ever wanted to donate to a food shelter, but you've held back just because you felt that the quality of the produce didn't measure up to the perfection that you see in the grocery store? But we all know that the taste and the look, they rarely match up, and there's nothing better than anything picked fresh from the garden. But you know what? Although this may not look perfect, if you're gonna eat it, and you should, there's no reason to deny anybody else that opportunity. Fresh from the garden, well, that's as good as it gets. There are going to be a lot of people that want to participate in getting food to the food pantry, but they're never going to grow it in their backyard. But you still have ways to help them with that.
And even gardeners don't necessarily grow food in the wintertime. Here it's full of snow. There are several things that people can do in their own community. They can urge the food pantries in their community to register at AmpleHarvest.org. They can help gardeners in their community learn about AmpleHarvest.org. We even have flyers for that for garden shops. People, when they go to a farmer's market, they can buy food there, especially at the end of the day when there's a lot of food left over. That can be donated to a food pantry. People who get allocations from a CSA and they just don't like what they got, or they got too much of it, just like growing, they can donate that. And if you go to a store, we have an app that you can use to find what food pantries your community are looking for, and you can buy whether it's produce or otherwise, what's available in the supermarket.
So you don't have to grow it to help.
You don't have to, not at all.
All right, so if you'd like more information on helping with your local food pantry, well, why not go to the website that started right here in this garden? We'll have a link for that on our website, and the address is the same as our name. It's growingagreenerworld.com. No matter where food distribution takes place, the goal is the same: get the best food available to the people that need it the most. And distribution sites can range from hotels to community centers to houses of worship, like this one. We're just a couple hours away from the harvest at the community garden and then delivery here to the church, where each Friday evening Reverend Janet and other volunteers are here to receive that produce and then quickly get it into the hands of neighbors in need, while still at the peak of freshness and nutrition. So tell me, if you can, about some of the people that you serve, the type of people that you're serving.
We have a wide variety of demographics. We have some who are unemployed, some who are homeless. We range in age. I think of an older couple who come here regularly because Social Security just isn't enough money to cut it.
Yeah. What about on a weekly basis? I know that you give 2 opportunities each week to provide food and produce. What is it that they're getting for that?
They get 3 square meals. They get breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the bags, but they also get fresh produce.
So in a week's time, they've got one of those days taken care of, and fresh produce is a big deal.
Very, yes, and they love like the local tomatoes, cucumbers. They are big hits.
I'll bet they are. Now tell me about the impact that Ample Harvest has had on your community. Can you even put that into words?
It's hard to put it into words because one of the things Ample Harvest has helped us do is network and connect with other people and find out what they're doing and share ideas, and really helped us with teamwork. Another thing is the fresh produce, which is a big help with providing healthy food and introducing people to some new foods.
Yeah, and you have some new food coming in here today by way of produce. A lot of that harvest
So we better get ready for it.
Exactly right. So here we are at the West Milford Community Garden. It's the best time of the week. It is Friday evening, and that means harvest time, with the ultimate goal of getting as much as we can out of here to take to the food pantries. All the volunteers come in here on Friday evening and they get busy. And the community does a great job of making this garden work for everybody. Now, there are 30 plots here with 30 individual gardeners managing the food for their own table. But during the week, they're also asked to do something else, and that's to utilize this flag system. Let me explain how it works. Now, each plot has a plot marker, and if I were the volunteer and I came along and I had a blue flag right by the marker, that means that as the volunteer, I can take everything out of this plot. Now, in this case, that means all the tomatoes and the chard and the peppers and the basil and the herbs. There's a lot here. But what if there's a yellow flag? Well, yellow flag means just take half of everything, and that's still a bounty. But because there are 30 gardeners here, there are 30 people with different preferences, like this plot right here. You come over here and you see a yellow flag right by the carrots. Now, we already know that yellow means take only half, and because it's right by the carrots, it means take only half the carrots. And the blue flag next to the broccoli, well, that means take all the broccoli. Obviously, they've had their fill of broccoli for a season. But it's a great way for the individual gardener to get everything that they need, and it's an easy system to make sure that nothing goes to waste. You know, part of the solution to ending hunger is right in our own backyards. Whether we grow food and donate the excess, or we just share some of our time to distribute the food given by others, every action counts. And together, we really can help reduce hunger in our own communities while improving the environment and reducing waste. And we have a lot more information on this subject on our website. You'll find it under the show notes for this episode. And the address is the same as our name. It's growingagreenerworld.com. I'm Joe Lample. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for doing your part as we all work together to grow a greener world. We'll see you back here next time.